Right, I'm just giving you a quick overview of the more power puller from Wyeth Scott, which is in the top, and just a cheap sort of Chinese come along. These are readily available around the globe. The bottom one is a 4-ton, so probably the first thing to point out is that the 4-ton models, they're often listed in imperial, so it's worth checking because the metric rating's obviously lower, so it might be around 3.6 tons in metric. The Wyeth Scott at the top is actually rated up to 6-ton imperial, or around 5.4 ton metric, and as you can see, it's slightly different in terms of their design, basically about longevity and robustness. So the first thing is size. They're larger. The main one is the reel on this can hold up to 11 meters of Dyneema cable, which is a bit safer than steel cable and easy to work with on your hands. And if it snaps, less risk to yourself in terms of whiplash. So this reel is obviously larger than the alternative version. In addition, your pawls are much heavier duty. This is the same pawl, which is basically just three brass plates riveted together. Most of this model is held together by screws and bolts in separate pieces. When the model of the more power puller is made out of ductile iron and steel and is essentially a single unit, heavier duty as well. So this does weigh more. This is about 10 to 11 kilos all up. This is probably about 5. The handle is a lot skinnier. This one here has actually got quite a lot of sharp lips, so you'd want to handle this with gloves on. I found that the first time I used it, I ended up cutting my fingers. To release the rope in the Wyeth Scott is a fair bit easier. You can do it with one hand by pressing down this bottom pawl, just the way the handle's designed. You can press firmly down and pull this up with your thumb, and then just simply pull the rope out to unwind it. Nice and easy, and then to pull it in, it's just quite a solid, robust click and secure of the pawl into the reel. To release these ones, you have to flick this little spring over. That frees up this pawl, and then underneath here it's quite stiff. You release that and then pull, and you can see even then the wire is getting a bit bound. A little bit fiddly. The main difference, might be obvious there, is that the rounding of a lot of these teeth, they're actually about half the size of the teeth of the more power puller, which are precision cut, and they're nice and squared off. The knees are quite round, so risk slipping over time. And yeah, there's obviously a fair bit of sharp edges on some of this, so you'd want to use gloves. The other key part of these two models is that this safety handle from the more power puller is actually designed to bend before the load capacity is reached. So if you're winching and you're getting close to what the braking strain of the rope is, or even before that, this handle will bend as a safety factor. This isn't factored into this model at all, so you're at the risk, and a lot of the disclaimers basically say you have to know what you're pulling to ensure that you don't exceed the maximum load. It's probably fair to say that because of the short handle, if you were trying to pull 3.6 metric tons, if this is what this model is rated at, because it did say 4-ton imperial, then you may not be able to do this with this amount of leverage. and they actually specifically say you're not allowed to add an extension handle or any cheater bar to this because it will exceed it. So that's part of, I suppose, the caveat to reduce the winch's effectiveness. The more power puller has been designed with an extension handle which you can add on to it and allow you to pull up to that maximum weight. And the reason behind this is that the safety handle will always bend before, even with the extension handle on. So by adding an extension handle, you have half the winching effort, which makes it a lot easier, especially when you're doing those double line pulls. Probably the other key thing is the size of these hooks and pulleys. So the more power puller has some quite industrial size hooks versus the standard imported model, and the pulley is obviously a fair bit smaller. Same with the anchor hook and some of the basically looks like threaded wire, just push through there to hold it in place. Yeah. What I'll do next is I will pull both the lines out so you can see the difference versus a single line and a double line pull. The cable has already bound itself underneath and over wrapped, which is a bit of a pain. It's quite hard to pull out on my own, so I'm going to have to wedge it in something to release it, but you need to leave sort of 3 wraps on this yoke, this reel, to make sure that the you don't put too much pressure on where it's attached to. Similar with the more power puller, leave sort of 5 wraps when you're winching. But the big difference here is a lot of these are rated to sort of about 8,000 pounds, but they only have up to 1.5 to 2 meters of cable on. So the single line pull means you can only pull sort of 1.8 metric tons or 2 imperial tons, and then if you want to do the double line pull to pull the sort of 3.6 metric tons to 4 imperial tons, your cable length is halved. So your 1.5 meter pull suddenly becomes 0.75 meters, which means if you're trying to do it for, say, pulling over a tree, or you're trying to pull out any stuck vehicles or anything like that, you're going to have to reset the winch a lot. Right, here we have the 2 models side by side. That's the single line pull length for the standard come along that's readily available. And this is the Wyeth Scott with its 5 wraps on the rope. So you can see there's obviously a lot more line. So you could do a up to 2.7 ton single line, metric ton single line pull with this model, with 10.5 meters of rope versus 1.5 meters with the steel cable. It's with a double line pull, so this cable length's now about 0.75 meters on the small come along. That'd be about 3.6 metric tons, 4 imperial tons based on the model specs. And the Wyeth Scott double line pull a lot longer, so this is about a 5 meter double line pull. Finish up. Now I've wound everything in. Generally I would say that these Wyeth Scott more power pullers are an alternative or comparison to the Tefl tractile type steel cable pullers, mainly on the basis that they can pull similar weights in terms of their metric tonnage, but also that they have up to 10 or 11 meters of rope on, while these only have sort of 1.5 meters of cable on. So the advantages when you're comparing them to the tractile Tefl, which I'll possibly do another video on, is that it's obviously Dyneema rope, so it's a lot lighter, meaning this whole model with extension handle weighs around 11 kilo, when the 3.2 ton tractile Tefl model can weigh up to 45 kilo once you include the steel cable rope. Steel cable, sorry. So you've got to carry that weight around, and then obviously work with that when you're out in the field. So yeah, that's a general overview of these two versions, and hopefully it's been informative.